individuals who are blind and visually impaired for over 4 decades as an orientation and mobility instructor. He has also been a treasurer of NYSAER for 30 years of service and kept the financial records in pristine condition. And whereas Dan Mclaughlin is a community-minded and has volunteered in his local community sports programs. He has been a wonderful role model for all who have served with him on the NYSAER board. The goals and mission of NYSAER is to support professionals who provide education and rehabilitation services to people with visual impairments, offering professional development opportunities, publications, and public advocacy, all of which Mr. Mclaughlin has fulfilled. And whereas friends and family have gathered on this day to celebrate Dan Mclaughlin and his dedication to the NYSAER, to honor him for all of his accomplishments, wishing him longevity, happiness, and success. Now and therefore be it resolved that as a duly elected member of the State Assembly of New York, I recognize and honor that in Dan Mclaughlin we have an outstanding citizen who is worthy of the esteem of both the community and the great state of New York. In witness whereof I have hereupon to set my hand and signature, Mark Jonai, Member of Assembly, 80th Assembly District. Dan, on this day, October 27, 2014. And thank you for all of your service. So he could say a few words that he didn't even know this was happening. I want to ask anybody out here in the membership if you have any comments to make to Dan or a story about Dan that you would like to share at this time. So please do not hesitate and stand up, Mr. Craig Warner.
Hello, everybody. In the work that I did, when I worked at all, I was involved in a lot of evaluation of job descriptions. I helped read them, I helped wrote them, and we managed to finesse language that we could all live with, and then we would invite candidates in for the interview. And I remember one particular afternoon, after we were dealing with an abrasive candidate, someone at the table said to me, "I don't like them." And I said, we cannot use that as a criterion for rejection. That is a matter of chemistry. The affirmative action officer will never let that go. But yet, I find myself feeling that above and beyond any other quality that a human being should possess in any job is kindness. We cannot put kindness on a job description. It wouldn't wash. But all of you know what it means to be kind. Every time I think of Dan Mclaughlin, I think of a phrase that I learned from him a number of years ago, and it's a phrase that I try to live by. Do the friendly thing. It's absolutely true. Dan has a smile for everybody. He has a pleasant word for everybody. He has only one mood, kind. That's all there is to it. And I agree with Jerry Miller. I have a lot of trouble remembering things that happened in the past. But I do remember something that Dan said to me this afternoon. I happened to be sitting with him at lunch, actually, and we got talking about registration mistakes. Not AER registration mistakes, of course. And I said to Dan, in all the years I've been going to conferences, no one has ever said, "You're not registered." And Dan said, every once in a while it happens. He said, and it usually is because someone, not the candidate, hasn't done the paperwork. Perhaps an agency, perhaps a company. And he said that he allowed the person to come in, and he ironed out the registration discrepancies later. I said, good for you, Dan. And then, I don't think I'll ever forget what he said to me. He said, you have to. He didn't say, one should do it that way. It would be a good idea. You have to, he said. With Dan, we're talking about the kindness imperative here. And I'm so thankful to know you, Dan. I have an Irish friend whose name is Jack Lynch, and he once described a friend with these words, and I'd like to take that description and appropriate it for you. Dan, you are a walking smile. Congratulations.
Speaking, and I remember when I first joined AER, so I joined AER and I knew Dan from way back, but then I never went to an international AER conference, and so I got a paper accepted and I was really excited, but I couldn't afford to go. And I get this email that says, if you're a member of AER, New York State would pay for some of your international AER conference registration fee. And I'm like, really? So then Dan's like, yeah, Dan, do you remember this? And he says, yeah, we'll give you some money. And he made it possible for me to go to the first AER conference I ever went to. And I was honored to be a keynote at this past AER conference, but I never would have even gone if it weren't for Dan and being so generous. And I really appreciate that. So thank
you. Anybody else like to say anything? John?
Yeah, there was about 12 years ago, I had the opportunity to go to the international conference in Toronto with Dan. And Dan, one of the reasons I think that Dan has been so successful in his career is he's very calm under pressure. He's very relaxed. He handles it very well. And we were on we took like a cruise out into, remember this, Dan? We took the cruise out in one of these party boats out into the lake, and we were coming back in, and our captain of our rather large party boat misjudged the distance between our boat and another smaller boat, which was also a party boat. So Dan and I are standing on the deck with drinks in hand. We both look up at the wheelhouse, and we see the captain trying to steer the boat to avoid a collision, and he's turning purple, and he's trying to turn the boat to prevent a head-on collision. And I turned to Dan and I said, Dan, I think we're going to hit that boat. And then Dan looked at me and said, John, I think we are going to hit the boat. Very calm. And we raised our glasses and we hit the boat.
We didn't spill a drop.
No, we did not spill a drop. My good Irish did not.
Dan and I work for the same BOCES, so very frequently I follow him the day after or shortly after he's been to see kids. And he is Dan the man, and I'm just Miss A. And I'll go in, did you see Dan? Like, I must see Dan every day, of course. Did you see Dan? We went for a milkshake. Did you see Dan? We had Chinese food today. Did you see Dan? They love Dan, and if they miss him, you know, like, you're going to get it on Thursday or whenever you go back to West Hill, because I'm going to hear it on Thursday that you weren't there today. They didn't get to go get their milkshake. But everybody loves Dan, and they love his day with them, and every kid cannot wait until Dan comes for O&M. That's awesome.
Is there anybody else here today?
Well, I just want to make sure that we understand that as president of the current AER board, what's happening here is Dan is transitioning off our board. He has been our treasurer for 18 years, and his steady hand in good times and in poor times has, allowed us all to feel great confidence in, the feasibility of what we're doing. And he's not quick to make a decision of yes or no. He's quick with a solution, a suggestion, where we might ask what was there. And he is a leader that allows us all to participate. And we are going to miss Dan on our board. We are welcoming Ron. We are so happy, and he knows it. But it is a transition that was bound to happen, and it was a pleasure to serve with you. And, we look forward to many years ahead, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Hey, Dan, the podium is yours.
Difficult to follow that, that's for sure. Jerry Miller would understand this, whereas he has been around for a long time.
Sorry, Dan.
That's all right. The way we were, right? As you all know, this is a little uncomfortable for me. I prefer working in the back. As they say in the trenches, that's where I feel most comfortable. But on this particular occasion, I want to thank everyone involved for this last couple of days. It's really been special for us. I know that Donna has played a big role in making this special, and I really appreciate that. From the standpoint of upgrading our suite, my wife appreciated that. We went to the pump house in Albany and enjoyed that. Had some good brew. Several gifts I received. The complimentary page in the program. Probably too many things to really remember everything. But I just had to make a few comments in terms of the last 18 years. When I have to go back 20 plus years ago when Mary Fleming was the treasurer. We kind of have a joke at the board meeting. Even though this is an electronic time, there are occasions when someone will still say, I have that information, it's in a box somewhere. And I remember Mary when she said when she came on as treasurer in the early 90s, the treasury was delivered to her in a box of somewhat organized papers. She didn't know what to do. She went to a CPA to try to get some kind of organization. And she established the foundation for what's happened really over the last 20 years or so. So that when I came on in 1996, she really had established a foundation of accountability and working toward professionalism in terms of our finances. Since then, I think the board has attempted to build on that foundation. Transparency to the members, to the board in terms of where our money is, where it's going, and it's been very special to work with the people. That's what I'm going to miss the most, is the dedicated people that are on the board. We're in a situation now where we've kind of brought it along. We established a financial oversight committee a few years ago, and Ron Ritter has been a member. Ron had to leave because he's visiting his sister, but Ron has been our secretary these many years. And a year ago when I decided that I was not going to run again, Ron stepped up and said that he would run. And he's been on that I told the board, he's been on that committee, that financial oversight committee, since its inception. I've sat next to him on all the board meetings, and I told the board that he has held me accountable for every cent that we've spent. So the treasury is in good hands, that's for sure, with Ron, and he'll do an excellent job for you. It was time for me to step aside. I mean, you're looking at someone that went to college with a portable typewriter and a transistor radio, and it had a cord so you could put the plug in your ear and you wouldn't disturb your roommate. We felt that the students that were elite students had a plug-in electric typewriter, so they were special. So you can imagine coming from that in the computer age, and I'm very fortunate that my dear wife was a computer teacher, so that she continues to bail me out, and maybe has enabled me to be so challenged technologically, because she bails me out all the time. But Ron said to me that he thought that within a year he would have everything online. So it was time for somebody who was more savvy as far as technology was concerned to take the position. Mary had established things. We had brought it along for 18 years. Ron will he'll bring you into the 21st century, that's for sure. Okay. As I said, I will miss all the dedicated people. special people on the board. You know, just amazing people. And that's what I'll miss the most. I thank you very much.
And this is the last award I'm going to present, and it breaks my heart. I wish I had a box.